Hello everyone, this is Buddha Zen Wisdom. We accompany you every day. Many people say they aren't really afraid of getting old, what they fear is the helplessness that comes when they lose the ability to care for themselves. Even when someone is old, even if they move slowly or suffer from various illnesses, as long as they can eat, sleep, and live independently, life can still go on smoothly. In old age, the most worrisome thing is, once you lose the ability to care for yourself, not only will you suffer, but you may also burden your children. If you have dutiful children, life may still be relatively easy, but if your children are not filial, the elderly may suffer greatly. So, in old age, when a person completely loses the ability to care for themselves, what methods can ensure a comfortable old age? The approaches of 3 elderly individuals are worth learning from. Aunt Liao. I'm 83 this year. My peers are in better health than me and can take care of themselves, but I lost the ability to live independently 3 years ago and now reside in a well-equipped nursing home. I had already planned for my old age when I was young because I knew my genetics weren't good. All my immediate relatives, including my parents, grandparents, and maternal grandparents, were in poor health and suffered from various chronic illnesses. My parents lost the ability to live independently in their 60s. Although they were retired, their pension wasn't enough to pay for a live-in caregiver, and I had to work every day and couldn't take time off to care for them. Because they had no money, my parents hired a 70-year-old neighbor, Grandma Lee, to take care of them. They gave her more than half of their pension every month to deliver 3 meals a day and help with washing their bedding. But since Grandma Lee was elderly herself and had limited energy, she could only do so much. Her care was very hasty, and my parents suffered daily, lying in bed in pain, helplessly calling for help that never came. Eventually, they lost the will to live and resorted to starving themselves to hasten their deaths. Their tragic deaths were a wake-up call for me. To avoid following in their footsteps, I started working hard to save money when I was young. Even when my son got married, he used his own savings to buy a house. I didn't contribute financially. Every time I thought of my parents' painful deaths, I was afraid to spend money recklessly, determined to save as much as possible for my retirement. At 70, burdened with multiple chronic illnesses, I lost my ability to care for myself. My husband's health was also poor, and he had no strength to take care of me. My son had to work and couldn't care for me either. Luckily, I had my years of savings and a monthly pension, so I moved into a nursing home with my savings and pension book. I chose the best nursing home in the city, with comprehensive facilities. I selected a private room for myself so I wouldn't be disturbed while eating or resting. I often discreetly slip red envelopes to the caregivers. Since they accept the money, they naturally take good care of me. I live comfortably in a private room, and the caregivers treat me well, so I have a very pleasant life in the nursing home. I believe that if a person wants to avoid suffering in old age, they must prepare enough money for retirement. Like me, even though my husband isn't reliable and my son doesn't have time for me, I can still choose the best nursing home and pay for the best service because I have enough money, ensuring a comfortable old age. Uncle Juan. I am an 80-year-old widower. Ever since my wife passed away, I've had trouble with meals. To keep things simple, I either eat instant noodles or buy a couple of buns from the market. My poor diet caused me to develop a severe stomach ulcer, and my health deteriorated to the point where I lost the ability to care for myself. Once I became incapable of taking care of myself, I called a family meeting with my 4 children. I gathered them to figure out a solution for my inability to live independently. My children suggested I hire a caregiver, but I told them, if I had enough money to hire a caregiver, I wouldn't need to bother you. I only have a pension of less than 4,000 yuan a month, which isn't enough to pay for a caregiver. My children offered to pool their money to cover the shortfall, but I thought it was too much to ask, considering they weren't wealthy themselves. I didn't want to burden them with my care. After discussing it, we decided that I would move in with my retired daughter. She has a 3-bedroom house and could spare 1 room for me. Her husband is an honest man and didn't object to me living with them. Once my care was settled, I handed over my pension book to my daughter, solemnly promising her that as long as she took good care of me and ensured I lived comfortably, all of my pension would be hers. Moreover, after my death, she would receive a larger share of my property as a reward for caring for me. Everyone agreed to this arrangement, believing it was fair for her to receive more since she was providing the care. My daughter was happy with the deal and promised to take good care of me, ensuring I wouldn't suffer in my old age. Now, under my daughter and son-in-law's attentive care, my mood and health have improved significantly. Spending my final years at my daughter's home is the happiest decision for me. I think that living with a retired child is a win-win solution. It solves the problem of the elderly not being able to care for themselves while also providing extra income for the children. It's a benefit to both sides. Aunt Wei. My husband and I are both in our 80s and have long since lost the ability to live independently. Despite this, we still live comfortably because we hired a live-in caregiver. Our caregiver's last name is Wu, and we call her Aunt Wu. Even though Aunt Wu is just a caregiver, we treat her like family, better than we treat our own family members. We not only pay Aunt Wu her monthly salary but also regularly give her red envelopes. Whenever we have something good to eat, we let Aunt Wu eat first, and we eat afterward. The reason we treat Aunt Wu so well is that we believe in treating others as we would want to be treated. Since Aunt Wu works hard to take care of us, we feel we should repay her accordingly. This way, she feels her efforts are appreciated, and she's more willing to care for us wholeheartedly. If we want good care, we must treat the caregiver well. Only when the caregiver is happy will she make sure we're well cared for. Whenever Aunt Wu takes care of us, we politely thank her for her hard work. This behavior makes her feel respected, and she takes even better care of us. Before Aunt Wu, we had another live-in caregiver, but we didn't have experience at the time. We thought that since we were paying her, she should take care of us unconditionally. We often ordered her around and criticized her work. If she didn't meet our expectations, we even docked her pay. The more demanding we were, the worse the caregiver performed. She only stayed for a month, and before leaving, she told us that with our harsh attitude, we'd never find a good caregiver. After she left, we reflected on our behavior and realized that caregivers aren't emotionless tools, they're people with feelings. We need to treat them with humanity if we want them to stay long-term. When Aunt Wu arrived, we learned from our previous mistakes and treated her with great respect. As a result, we not only enjoy her excellent service, but both sides are much happier. We aren't short of money, so we pay Aunt Wu much more than the market rate. Although caring for two elderly people who can't live independently is exhausting, Aunt Wu willingly does the job because of the high pay. Thanks to Aunt Wu's meticulous care, we live a very happy life in our old age. Our happiness is not just because we pay her well but because we treat her like family. In return, she takes great care of us. Conclusion. We will all grow old, and we will all face the day when we can no longer care for ourselves. As long as we can still move, life holds many possibilities. But once we lose the ability to care for ourselves, the only option left is to pay for services. The elderly can hire their children, a live-in caregiver, or a nursing home for these services. Whatever choice an elderly person makes, as long as they receive good care, it is the best choice. Regardless of the method, financial support is essential for any form of elderly care. Therefore, we must all plan for our retirement when we are young to avoid reaching a day when we can't afford caregivers, can't afford a nursing home, and are seen as burdens by our children.